Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? And today I've got a question from one of my students, Tamsyn, and I'm going to paraphrase because Tamsyn asked me this ages ago, and I don't know how much of her stuff she wants shared out there. So Tamsin was asking me whether we tap into different parts of spirit in our relationships with spirit at different times through different mediums, whether different mediums tap into different energies. I think that's the question. Forgive me, Tamsin, if I've paraphrased too much. So she asks in her email, when we tap into spirit, is her unique connection to her husband different to the one that a medium would have? Is her writing a different way of connecting to her husband? And I think, yes, absolutely, Tamsin. I'm trying this is such a big subject. I'm trying to work out where to start. First things first. Different mediums will pick up different bits of energy from different spirits. Spirits will present differently through different mediums. Different bits of evidence will come through different mediums. And that is because mediumship works through the resource of you. So everything that you are able to receive from a spirit when you are doing mediumship is through your lens, your filter. I cannot perceive things from spirit that I have no knowledge or awareness of. It's simple as that. So that is why when you go to different mediums, they will bring through sometimes the same bits and sometimes different bits of evidence, because we all perceive and receive things differently. Add into that our actual ability to perceive and receive things. So, some of us are very strong with visual, some of us are very strong with feeling, some of us are very good with words and addresses. And so when that spirit comes in, spirit have the intelligence. They know the best bits of evidence to get through each of the mediums. It's kind of fascinating. And yeah, I think when we open up, we also tap into different aspects of spirit. So, for example, when you're journaling, you're probably not asking your husband for evidence. You're probably asking for feelings. You're probably asking for things that he would tell you that he's seeing. You're asking him for comfort. You're asking him for guidance. Whereas perhaps if you were sitting in an evidential space, although I will say I think it's really hard to do evidential on your own spirits. I find it nearly impossible, in honesty. But yeah, so there is that intelligence again of knowing the expectation of the medium, or what we're looking to achieve, or what is most needed for us or most important. And this is why I do not do joint readings, because we had the perfect example of this on my retreat recently. So I'm just getting onto the right screen on my laptop so I can. Right. My grandmother came through one of the mediums demonstrating at my retreat. But my sister was also on the retreat helping. She was chefing for us. So there were two of us who had the same spirit in the spirit world. And there were moments where she was saying yes to stuff that I was saying no to, and vice versa. And it was a really great demonstration. And actually, I have to say, I think I've been perhaps a little unfair to my grandmother, but also it's such an interesting thing. So my grandmother was the most incredible woman. She was So loving, so funny. She was such a light. She was so engaging. She was so vivacious. She was like a star that had fallen to earth. But towards the end of her life, she became difficult. Now, she'd always had a slight bitchy edge, which I don't judge because I have it too. But towards the end of her life, it got bigger. It got sharper. It got longer. She would spend hours talking about who she didn't like and why she didn't like them. It became more draining. Rather than being part of her vivaciousness, it became a symptom of, oh God, here she goes again. Oh God, make it stop. That kind of thing. And my grandmother and my grandfather, I can't let him get off scot-free if I'm honest, made some incredibly questionable decisions with regards to my family, not my little family, but my mum and her siblings. And some of those behaviours and decisions are they're still being felt now. The shockwaves from those events are still vibrating through everybody. And so when a medium brings through my grandmother, she said she's a very kind and loving lady. And I said no, and my sister said yes. And we were both right. Because my sister didn't see as much of my grandmother towards the end of her life as I did. So to her, my grandmother is held in stasis of who she used to be, which is rather lovely. And I wouldn't want to take that away from her. But I saw more of her, and I have also dealt more with the shockwaves that have come out since my grandmother passed, and the falling apart of my family as a result of that. So I don't think she was always kind, and I think sometimes she was very unaware and difficult. And so I'm experiencing through that filter. And this is the intelligence of spirit, because it was more important for my sister to get a message from my grandmother. My grandmother has come through to me many times. My students bring her through quite a lot because of her vivacious nature. She's a great spirit to work with. So when you're looking at the need and the intelligence of the spirit, then the spirit brought through the best version for the person who had the most need to hear from her. And she used to be kind and loving. And it was a really wonderful thing for me to remember that, because I've got so tied up in what's happened since that it's easy to forget. Isn't that a hard and horrible thing? Who wants to be remembered as their worst bits and forgotten about their best? I feel a bit ashamed about that. Sorry, Nana. But that is the journey. And that is the way that it works. That journey of my relationship with my grandmother has continued after her passing. It hasn't stopped. It's changed and shifted as more fallout happened, as more upset happened. And I do hold her responsible for that in part. So that makes it difficult. And so, yeah, in spirit's intelligence, they do present in different ways to different people. And that is kind of mind blowing. This is why I'm always banging on about the intelligence of spirit cannot be underestimated. Because your husband, when he comes through, he knows what you are going to recognize. He knows what you need the most from him in that moment, and he knows what you have asked him for before you got into the session. But he also knows what that medium who is connecting to him is able to bring through, what aspects, memories, evidence they are capable of receiving. And so he works through that filter too. And that is really, when you think about the magnitude of that, I've said it very simply, but it's a huge thing. It's humongous. All the different bends and movements within it all. The intelligence. They know what is best to come through. And I love that. As a little aside, I love it because it's often the bits of evidence that people say no to at DEMS that people then have the most mind-blowing realizations with later that really crack them open. And I think there's an intelligence at play there. They know that getting yeses might make me look good, and I'd still like as many as possible, please, Spirit. But I'm also willing to get a no in front of an audience and for them to have some sort of wow factor moment later when they realised it was right and it was a gap in their knowledge or something they'd forgotten about. And I think Spirit have that intelligence going on too. It really is a magnificent thing. And then you continue to ask in your question. I'm just going to read this bit out loud. I don't know if you can decipher what I'm asking. And through doing the Evidential Mediumship course with you, my own healing spirit guide meditation healing, and now the trance. Oh, and the spirit guide connection we have done too. It all feels quite different energy-wise. So I'm just fascinated to know what your knowledge thoughts are on my rambled questions. My husband has spoken many times to me about opening any energy doors, that spirit can't get through unless asked, invited. And I have an allowing energy by opening the door energetically so they have access to it. But I thought they were here with us anyway and could respond even without us asking them to help. Or am I being naive? I suppose it's a bit like setting an intention. You can't expect something unless you set the clear intention. I will stop now as my brain is whirring and I will give you the chance to try and compute what I have said. Okay, so I am trying to compute it. Now, here is the thing. Spirit are with us. Yes, they are here. But if you want to feel them, you have to open the door. And the door that opens is in your energy, not Spirit's energy. Does that make sense? So it's us that open up to spirit. We are opening up to something that is already there. Just like when you open your front door of your house and your path is out there or your drive or whatever it is, you are opening to what was already there. So spirit are already with us. They're already beside us. They are with us every moment of every day. But we have to open up to them. We have to be aware of them. And the frequencies is the same thing. It's not that spirit require instruction, but our energy requires instruction. So when I talk about the 5 frequencies, it's you making that choice of what you do with your energy. So when you are choosing to work with spirit guide, you are basically setting an intention that you're going to work with spirit guides, but also, of course, spirit are a oneness, but also in that is the expectation that it's going to be guidance and inspiration. If you're working in evidential, you are opening up your energy to specifics so that you can get proof. And that is just in you. And that's why it's really important when we know what we're opening up with, because this is where people get confused. They think they're working mediumistically, but they're working psychically because their energy is all with the sitter and not with the spirit world. And that doesn't mean the spirit world aren't present. Of course they are. They're at the edge going, holla, hello, can you hear me? But our energy and our focus is working psychically on the sitter. So that's why you need to be opening the correct doors to the correct frequency of where you want to work. Tamsyn, I hope that I have done your question honour. It's such a big topic. So I just want to reiterate one more time, just in case anyone listening is just like, what? We control our own energy. We are like a radio. And we pick up whatever frequency that radio is set to. Now, if you open up with no intention then all you are doing is cycling through all of the stations. It doesn't settle. It's a bit like when you're searching in your car and it just goes through all the different stations. Whereas if you say, I want to work with spirit guides, you are in the spirit guide frequency. And that has an expectation mentally for you, which is then reverberated in your energy. So when we open up to spirit guides, because there is no point generally in getting information that is evidential from a spirit guide because nobody could prove it. I've just been writing my second book, and I've been writing in it about the time I tried to cheat the system and get a spirit guide drawing. And I got a whole write-up and a whole CV, and none of it I've ever been able to prove, and I have never seen that guide. It's that kind of thing. There's no point getting evidence from a spirit guide, but we do want inspiration, teaching, lessons, understanding, healing. So when we're opening up in the spirit guide frequency, we not only have the I'm going to work with spirit guides, but also the fine tuning of knowing what that frequency is going to be about. Plus the fine tuning of how we are working in that moment, whether we are writing, whether we are speaking, whether we are pulling cards, all of that moves that frequency. So you've got the wider width of the station, but then you've got the fine tuning into whatever activity you're doing and whatever you are expecting to receive. If you've asked Spirit a question, it will fine tune it to that answer. But that is all you will receive because that is all you have tuned into. Spirit, on the other hand, are also aware of what is happening with our energy and trying to jam with us the whole time. So spirit guides are seeing that you've opened up into the spirit guide frequency, so they know that they're going to be felt. But it doesn't mean your loved ones in spirit aren't there. And I know that some of you have loved ones in spirit who are spirit guides. But let's just work as if they're separate, because otherwise it gets too tangly messy. So the spirit guides are there, but it doesn't mean your loved ones aren't there. It doesn't mean your loved ones are like, oh, well, screw her. She's only working with spirit guides. They're still there, but you have tuned into the frequency, so that is what you can feel. If you tune into the angels, you feel the angelic frequency. If you work with ascended masters, you feel the ascended master frequency. It's exactly like that, with, of course, all those fine tunings. When you are working evidentially, you open up to the evidential frequency. And then I do feel like it's like a filter. I've said it before on this podcast, I'll say it again. It's like an elevator in a really tall hotel. You get off at a floor, and there's everybody's loved ones there. That person's loved ones there, not everybody's. Just that floor belongs to that sitter. And then you have to work out which is the one that wants to communicate that they want to hear from, because they're all there. And then you're having this energetic experience where you're trying to make sure it's the right one, which is how sometimes we can get it, which is nothing to be ashamed of. 'Tis facts. So that's kind of the way, but I don't believe that spirit need any instruction. I believe that the way that we perceive and receive spirit is through our own filter always, and through our own expectations. So yes, spirit are always there, but the door you are opening is your intention. And that's phenomenal that you've got yours wide open, because that's the best way. So many people only open there's a crack and wonder why they're not feeling much. I also think it's really good that you're feeling different energy, because it does feel different. It feels different to me too. Working evidentially feels different than working with spirit guides, feels different than working with healing. Trance feels very different to me. And I think that is just the way that in our physicality we feel the different frequencies, and of course the different spirits within that. I work with some spirits and they feel very different to other spirits, and working through that is the job. So it's phenomenal that you're feeling all of this. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's such a wide-reaching and amazing topic. I hope that this all makes sense. I know you will tell me if it doesn't, but please let me know. And thank you so much for submitting this question. Can't wait to see you on the school.